What's up, everybody? For one last time here in this work week, it is time for the Slate. We thank you for joining us here in this DraftKings program on the DK YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter pages. I'm Adam Kaufman, thrilled to be with you after taking a little sabbatical yesterday, but I hope everybody had a great holiday and week and everything like that. We got Matt LaMarca and Steve Buchanan here along for the ride. We're going to talk a lot of football primarily, maybe mix in a little bit of basketball. We got a busy 9-game slate tonight, but of course, guys, for the first time ever, we got ourselves a week 18 in the NFL on the horizon. LaMarca, I imagine you're very excited. What are you most looking forward to here?
I guess the Sunday night game between the Chargers and the Raiders. You know, essentially that's going to be a playoff game, which is cool. I like how they kind of have been flexing those into the primetime slots now, but I can't imagine that this is what the NFL really had in mind with Week 18, right? Basically, what is it? 11 of the 14 playoff spots have already been claimed. There's some jostling for seeding, but again, there's only one bye now, right? The only spot that really matters is the 1 seed, and the Packers have already clinched that in the NFC. So there's just not a ton to play for this week. You know, there's some rest situations to monitor. We'll get into that kind of stuff. But as far as just like the game that I'm most excited about, it would have to be the playoff game between the Chargers and Raiders.
Bukes, that in mind, I mean, this is not obviously a new concept. We run into this with week 17 in most years, and now obviously we have the extra week built into the NFL schedule. But the fact that there are these games that, whether it's rest situations, like you think of like the Packers who have already clinched that top spot in the NFC. Who knows if Aaron Rodgers plays more than a half, Devontae Adams, same type of deal. Which games or you know, players for DFS, games for betting, whatever it may be, who are you just totally staying away from because you don't know what the heck that game script is going to look like?
I mean, I really don't think we have a solid answer until maybe Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. It's still too early to even say. I mean, and a lot of the trickle-down effect is going to come from Saturday. Like, if the Chiefs lose by some weird reason, there's a lot up for grabs all of a sudden because they don't lock down that number 1 seed. Like, the Bengals would have an outside chance of still getting that. You know, will the Tennessee Titans end up locking up? So there's still some trickle-down effect from what happens in the
Titans are the favorites. If the Titans win, they're the number 1 seed.
Right, but the Titans will play on Sunday, so it's obviously whatever happens with the Chiefs too. So the Chiefs get the first crack at it is really what I'm trying to get at. So that could be, you know, more of, you know, what's going to happen on Sunday. So, you know, there's that there. But yeah, I mean, I really don't think like quite frankly, like I'm not really interested in betting any sides this week. Like it'll probably be a pretty heavy player prop game. Like we've, you know, talked about incentives coming up and like Stephon Diggs needs six catches. We all know about the Cooper Kupp ones and all that, but you know, this is going to be a really fun player prop week, but I just think, especially with some of these lines, like, you know, you really want to lay 15 on the Colts against the Jaguars, like they should trample them. There should be no issue, but, you know, do you feel good about that? Especially if they get up to a healthy lead and then start pulling some guys out. It's week 17 part 2. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, you mentioned obviously the Saturday games. Why don't we get into those? Because we do have the two. The Chiefs in Denver, of course, as you acknowledged, Kansas City comfortably favored by 10.5 points on the DraftKings Sportsbook. That is the latest. People are looking at it right now on the screens. You got Dallas, of course, just what's been a really largely a very good and obviously NFC East winning season, but a very up and down second half in particular for the Cowboys. They are in Philadelphia. The Cowboys favored by 4 in that one. There are playoff implications there. So starting with Kansas City, because you were just talking about that one, you mentioned player props as well. I know typically when we do this show on a Friday, granted, we're talking about Sunday games a lot of the time, so you're not really interested in diving into player props at this stage of the week because this is a day earlier. Anything jumping out at you here?
For player props?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of decent ones on here. Like Javonte Williams, I like his rushing total over 54.5. Like I know that the Broncos have been kind of doing that, the 1-2 there with Melvin Gordon, but I feel like this would be a great opportunity to kind of get Javonte Williams some of that RB1 role. And it feels like a pretty low number. He's been extremely efficient when he's taking the ball and rushing it. So I like taking him over 54.5 yards. Probably not going too heavy on the Chiefs in this one because of a couple reasons. They're big favorites in this one. Don't know if they're going to play the whole game in this one. And Denver is just, they're just trying to get the hell out of the season at this point. Placing Teddy Bridgewater on the IR, he's done for the year. They're rolling out Drew Lock. They don't want to be doing that at all. So they're just looking to get out of town at this rate here. But I think there's a couple spots they like with Javonte Williams to get him over on his. Noah Fant over his receiving yards isn't bad either. The Chiefs have really struggled against opposing tight ends. So those are probably two I'd be looking at in this one.
What about you, LaMarca?
Probably Cortland Sutton over on his receiving yards. The Broncos pass catchers are just kind of banged up at the moment. No Jerry Jeudy. So I would lean over on 28.5. That seems like a really low number for, essentially the Broncos' number one wide receiver. I'm with Steve. I do think that the Chiefs will play this game for the most part. I mean, if they build up a big lead, do I think that there's a chance that they could pull some of their guys late? Sure. But, Kansas City, as Steve alluded to, still has some stuff to play for here. They have an outside shot at the 1 seed that would require the Titans to lose to the Texans, which doesn't seem all that likely, but they can at least put it in the Titans' hands, where if they lose, Kansas City will jump them. So I expect them to play pretty well here. Their defense has been outstanding for the most part, outside of getting shredded by Joe Burrow last week. I don't think that Drew Lock is Joe Burrow. I feel pretty good saying that. I think the Chiefs defense will do enough that this game should be a comfortable one for Kansas City.
This Dallas Eagles game is, I just think it's really interesting. Maybe not so much for Week 18 specifically as just what it means going forward, especially for a team like Dallas, who at one point in time, I mean, we had conversations about the Cowboys on this show in weeks past. Are they a Super Bowl contender? What are their odds? Where do we really place them among the elite of the NFC? And again, second half, very up and down. They haven't beaten a team with a winning record since winning in New England back in October. It's a club that the offense has been sputtering. The defense has been inconsistent, too many penalties, special teams is not great. So it's it's hard to know exactly kind of which Cowboys team is going to show up here in Philly, even though it is a team that's played very well on the road. I guess where I would wonder here, and again, the Cowboys favored by 4, LaMarca, obviously to individuals, what Dak Prescott's capable of giving you. There's no more Michael Gallup. Does Cedric Wilson, for instance, does he jump in and immediately be what he was all those weeks that Gallup was out earlier this year?
I do like Cedric Wilson as a player. I think he's okay. I just don't see a lot of incentive for either of these teams, right? I mean, Dallas has just kind of been ravaged by COVID recently. Philly is in, but they can't win the division. So, what's the incentive for either of these teams to really play all that hard? I think under 43 is the way I'm leaning in this game. I think, both backup quarterbacks probably see the field at some point. Again, this game really just means nothing to either squad. So I think they treat it that way.
You feeling that same way, Bukes?
Yeah, 100%. LaMarca's spot on with this one. There is nothing to play for, really, that there isn't. And it's a shame that this is one of the Saturday games because, like LaMarca said, we could see a lot of backups in this one. If you want to prop in this one, if you go to touchdown scores, Corey Clement to score an anytime touchdown, plus 225. Tony Pollard's been ruled out of this one. They're absolutely going to be going easy on Ezekiel Elliott. Make sure he's completely healthy in this game, who's leading as an anytime touchdown score at even money. So Clement plus 225 to score a touchdown. Absolutely love that number for him. Without Tony Pollard, we saw him get a good amount of work when that scenario came up earlier this year. Eagles have been a total hit or miss when it comes to the ground game, but in a game where we have two teams that really have nothing to gain by playing their starters in this one, Clement without Pollard plus 225 anytime touchdown score. I love that number for him.
What about just before we get to the main slate, as far as these two Saturday games, when it comes to DFS, anybody that you think is a really obvious play here, Bukes?
When it comes to, this is only a 2-game slate, so obviously the pickings are slim. But if other than Mahomes, Hurts is going to give you the most upside out of any of these guys. Dak has really kind of just disappeared. Really feels like since about week 9 or 10, like he's been putting up some decent numbers. Had a good game against the Cardinals, but it's been relatively quiet for him as of late. So Jalen Hurts, I think, has the most upside of the very limited that we have here. So I have no issue using with him. Been kind of tough to figure out who to pair him with. For a couple of weeks, it looked like it was Dallas Goedert. That's been kind of the guy ever since Zach Ertz went over to the Cardinals. He's gotten much more involved in the offense. But, even someone like Devonta Smith, he's kind of like a Marquise Brown. He's either catching a couple balls and getting 90 yards or he's getting nothing. So it's like they don't have that solidified wide receiver one that he goes to. So Goedert's probably the play in this one. But, yeah, it's such a small slate that it's really, doesn't really come down to big options in terms of DFS.
As you guys mentioned, just a 2-game slate. It's not like there are a lot of options to begin with on either team. But as far as the running backs go, given what we know about Dallas and just the injury woes there, LaMarca do you look at Kansas City and maybe like Darrell Williams is the guy that jumps out as me as the best running back available to you on this very small slate? You agree with that? Is there another guy you like better?
No, I agree. I figure he's going to be the chalk on this 2-game slate. At 5,900, with no Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's coming off a pretty big game in his last outing, 25 plus DraftKings points, scored 2 touchdowns. I think the question is where do you can't play just 9 Chiefs and call it a day, right? We have to find some 9 Chiefs to put into our lineup. So it's you mentioned Cedric Wilson at 4,200. I think that's a pretty appealing price tag. You can go with a Dalton Schultz or a Dallas Goedert at tight end potentially. The hardest part is just going to be trying to find non-Chiefs, because I think you play Patrick Mahomes, you play Darrell Williams, you play Tyreek Hill, and maybe even somebody like Byron Pringle. There's just a lot of different Chiefs that you're going to want in your lineup here. So it's where do we look elsewhere is the big question.
So, Bukes, where are you looking elsewhere?
I mean, there's only 2 games, so there's not really a lot of options to be looking elsewhere. But, keep an eye on the Eagles' backfield situation. No Boston Scott potentially. Jordan Howard, I don't even care if he's active. The guy stinks. He averages 0.1 yards per carry if he's not running at the goal line. Untrue. That is absolutely true. Don't even try to rebuttal, okay? I know you're going to bring up the actual number. I'll be shocked if it's anything over 2, okay? Guy's a goal line back only. That's why
Jordan Howard this season has averaged 4.7 yards per carry.
On what? 6 carries?
86.
See, look at that. Against Washington. 2.4. 2.4. Terrible. He's awful. I don't care what you say. Jordan Howard stinks. All right.
He's in an optimal lineup though for Saturday. So I mean,
it's 2 games, Kaufman. Of course he's in the optimal lineup.
No, but I just mean it's like LaMarca was joking about, do we play 9 Chiefs? I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and you could realistically put 5 Chiefs in there, but I think you could find options elsewhere.
Let me tell you what. If there was an option to keep it blank, I would keep it blank before I put Jordan Howard in. Right?
Well, that's just mean. That's just mean and unnecessary.
$400.
It's a Friday, okay? I'm a little frisky, and I don't care.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's make the move to what really probably will interest the people most, and that is, of course, the Sunday main slate. And so similar to that Chiefs-Broncos game, we got some lopsided spreads right here. You got the Colts favored by 15 in Jacksonville. You got, obviously, Tennessee, 10-point favorites in Houston, like you mentioned before, Bukes. Let's see. The Jets, obviously, are 16.5-point dogs in Buffalo. Gross. Those are all your double-digit spreads. Which game are you looking at in particular here, LaMarca?
I don't really like to bet double-digit spreads. The Jets were frisky last week against Tampa Bay, and Buffalo has kind of looked a little shaky. I've been the guy who's been as high as possible on Buffalo, but I did not particularly like what I saw last week against the Falcons from them. I would probably just take the Colts, I think, if I was going to take a big favorite here. They have Jonathan Taylor. The Jaguars have nobody, including a head coach or hope. Apparently their fans are going to wear clown suits to the game on Sunday. I think I'm okay with laying 15 against the team whose own fans are wearing clown suits in the building.
Who's the report today they plan to interview for head coach next?
Who knows?
Wasn't a very appealing.
Ryan.
What's
Billy
that?
O.B.
Oh, that's who it was. Yeah, there you go.
Yep. That's just a disaster waiting to happen. Like,
yeah,
they're just that, like, they're literally clowning the franchise if that's the plan moving forward. Like, they're taking that like sentiment and actually running with it if they're going to try to bring in Bill O'Brien.
Bukes, as far as obviously Lamarca mentioned Jonathan Taylor, and yeah, like MVP candidate, he's going to be popular, he's going to be highly owned, all that. But just in terms of looking at Sunday, is there a better play? I mean, period, any position. Is Jonathan Taylor the ultimate chalk for you?
I mean, the ultimate chalk's going to end up being Cooper Kupp because he needs
always Cooper Kupp.
Always Cooper Kupp. It doesn't matter what price point he's at. Like, I'm actually shocked that he never touched 10K at any point this season. Like, we've seen 10K before. I feel like I remember that back with Antonio Brown a few years ago when he was with the Steelers.
Devontae, I think, got up there too.
Who else was it?
Devontae Adams, I want to say.
Devontae Adams, absolutely. Yeah, definitely Devontae Adams. So I don't know, maybe I'm surprised he's never gotten there, but like if there was a player to get 10K, like this would be A, the week, and B, the guy. But with that being said, like it's all about the incentives for him this week. I mean, the DraftKings Sportsbook even has like specific prop bets you can take that he goes and breaks the record, the receiving record in the yards. Like it's going to be a big narrative this week. And as long as, everything is kosher, they're going to try to get him that record. There's no doubt about that because of how much he is to that team. So it's going to be hard to get away from that guy when you have a receiver. You're like, okay, they're going to try to get him over 163 yards or whatever it is. Like hard to fade that guy because of the points that he's going to rack up at that point. But if there was a play in a tournament to pivot off of, this would be the guy because the ownership and how much he's going to take up of that salary. I know you're shaking your head, and I'm not making that case for that, to do that. But I'm saying if you want to pivot in tournaments, like this is the guy to do it off of because of the ownership. But, I mean, it's such a unique situation. Like, where do you see a guy where they're projecting him for almost, getting up to 200 yards. Like it's absolutely insane, but he's the chalk play. He's the chalk of chalk this week.
Every Sunday morning, I wake up like Kevin Costner in draft day. And I just write a note to myself that says Cooper Kupp, no matter what. And if I forget and I take him out of my lineup at some point, I look at that note and I just go, oh yeah, Cooper Kupp, no matter what. The guy is automatic. If you don't want to do it in tournaments, I think it's okay, but know that you're giving up 20 to occasionally 40 DraftKings points to your opponents.
Right. Yep.
So it's, you guys know I always like to look at these optimals and projections and whatever, and I can pull up Cooper Kupp's ownership in a sec here, but I'm looking at what, again, is right now at 5:30 on a Friday. So we're still so far away from lock on Sunday, but what currently exists as the optimal lineup based on projections right now, Cooper Kupp's not part of it. But what jumps out at me, what's really weird is that it's not like he's replaced by a Jonathan Taylor, let's say salary wise. It's just a much more balanced lineup. You've got like the most expensive play in this lineup is AJ Brown.
Interesting. There doesn't seem to be like a screaming value. And I haven't dug into this slate entirely yet, so I'm not really fully versed, but like I don't see the 4K-ish running back or the 3K-ish wide receiver that I necessarily want to put in my lineup this week. You do have some options, right? Samaje Perine is 5,300. You've got Gabe Davis at 4,900. I think those are strong values, but they're not as cheap 4K? As what we've seen from players that we've seen in the past.
Who's 4K?
I said Allen Robinson is 4K.
So?
The K too high.
Right. Right. Yeah, maybe if this was 2 years ago, that'd be an unbelievable value. Not this year.
They've got him.
I don't even know he exists.
What I'm looking at has him projected for double-digit points. Not like 20, but 11.
Double-digit points for Allen Robinson.
I think that would be a first for this season.
I was going to say, has that even happened this year?
I honestly have to look. I'd have to look.
He has 10.8 in one game and 10.4 in another. Those are his only two double-digit games this season.
Look at that ceiling. Awful.
I was trying to see if I could find Cooper Kupp's ownership, but I can't in this moment. It's fine.
If I had a guess, I would say it's probably hovering around in the mid-30s at least.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. Totally. I mean, that's the thing. Again, goes back to balance. But like nobody I see in this optimal lineup, and I'll shout out some names at you. You can tell me what you think of them. Nobody is projected to be owned more than right around 20%. So it's, there's like Taysom Hill is your quarterback in this lineup. Right, you have your running backs are Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery, with James Conner as a flex option. I won't totally build this thing out. We've mentioned some of the names, but again, it's just all like, I don't know. It's just value all over the place. It's just balance. It's, rather than going obviously stars and scrubs, it's just a very balanced lineup. And I'll be curious to see if that's a direction that people opt to go in with so much uncertainty surrounding at least some of the stars this week in week 18.
Well, you're going to be forced to play some of these obscure names just on, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Almost, right? Because, you're not going to be paying up for someone like, Justin Jefferson this week. Is, how much are the Vikings really going to play them in a meaningless game?
Sure.
And that's their boy there. Like if Jonathan Taylor, like that's the problem with some of these games too, right? Like let's just say the Colts go up 27-0 at half. Are they going to keep running Jonathan Taylor out there in the second half? Like, no, right? Like, we saw that happen with the Cowboys. Mark, can you help me remember what game it was? It might have been actually, I think it was Washington. Where the Dallas started
the 54 nothing. They played Cooper Rush in the entire fourth quarter.
Right, but then they started to come back, and that was a game they were resting Elliott a lot in the second half, and then the Washington started coming back in, and then they started running Elliott back out there. But like, that's not going to happen with the Jaguars. The Jags aren't going to make this unbelievable comeback. But I mean, that's the problem with some of these more expensive guys. Like, do you want to risk it with Taylor at 9,300? Maybe he does enough in the first half, right? But do you want to risk it when it takes up so much of your salary and he might play a half at that point? That's the problem with some of these guys too.
Our pal CEH in the chat, who in defense of Lamarca mentioned earlier, Howard was great in college. Says, all right, maybe great stretch. Says, do we like St. Brown again this week? What do you think?
It's Johnny Manziel.
It's true. What do you think of St. Brown this week?
I'm assuming he means Amon-Ra St. Brown because his brother is kind of in play for the Packers, right? If you're anticipating all the starters sitting,
true.
QSB could also be in play. But Amon-Ra has been amazing, right?
Yeah.
He has he's played with backup quarterbacks. Last week they had DeAndre Swift back in the lineup. It didn't matter. St. Brown still dominated, and he's been under-owned every week. He's yet to crack even double-digit ownership. I would imagine that probably changes this week. I think Detroit should be a little bit more popular, but I'm expecting them to win this game, right? Like Detroit has been that kind of team that plays hard every single week. They haven't gotten a ton of wins, but they have had a bunch of close games, a bunch of excruciating losses. I mean, that 66-yard field goal to Justin Tucker was it's just you can't lose a game in a tougher manner than that.
Yeah.
So with the Packers having no cornerbacks essentially, I don't see why ARSB would slow down this week.
Agree.
The only thing I will say is that the Packers did activate Jareer Alexander ahead of this game, so the coverage is not going to be easy. But again, Packers really have nothing to play for. I'm actually going to be real quick side note here. I'm going to be very interested to see the first half spread for the Packers against the Lions. That's probably going to be bigger than the overall spread here of -3.5. Like I wouldn't be surprised seeing 6.5, 7 for the first half, and then seeing something completely different for the second half because they're likely going to be sitting their starters in the second half. But tougher matchup for St. Brown, but I mean his salary feels like it still hasn't even caught up to his production as of late either. Like he's almost at 7K at this point, but somebody who's seen at least 11 targets in 5 straight games, 90 yards or more in 3 straight, like he's been incredible. And a couple of those games with Boyle, right? How absolutely atrocious he is. He completes like 6 passes a game, but somehow they all went to St. Brown. It was incredible. So getting Goff back is a big boost for him in a matchup that they're going to be getting much softer coverage in the second half too.
Seahawks and Cardinals, just looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook, as people out there are looking at on our screen as well. That's the highest over-under right now at 48 points, at least among games that are part of the Sunday main slate. Everything else is, high 30s to the mid 40s. I mean, much, much lower than obviously what we're accustomed to talking about here. So any over-unders that, excuse me, LaMarca, that you guys are targeting in particular?
No. I'll be honest. I do not really bet these. I'm bad at them. I am much better at sides than I am at totals. So I don't really give them a ton of attention each week. I will say the number that jumps out to me is the Jets have been like an over machine this season, which doesn't really make a ton of sense because the Jets aren't a great offensive team, but their defense is so bad, right? They could give up 45 to the Bills themselves in this contest. So if the Bills do what they're supposed to do and they put, 30 plus points on the scoreboard, I think Zach Wilson and company can get 2 touchdowns and hit us on an over here. So I'll continue to back some New York Jet overs.
Hughes?
I like taking that Panthers Bucks over. If the Bucks are going to give up 24 points to the Jets, the Panthers should at least be able to put 20 up against this team, right? Like, I know it's a disaster over there with the Panthers, but is it fair to say that it's also been a disaster with the Jets too as well? Like, I don't know, like 41.5 just feels a bit low. It's a gross game, but 90% of these games are gross. Like, if you're betting week 18, you're into this hardcore. Don't give me that crap. All right. You're going to be betting some gross stuff this week. Just get over it.
Damn right I am.
Right.
Legal sports betting, baby. It's here. We made it.
In New York, baby.
But I mean, look, that Buccaneers secondary is going to be the biggest downfall of that team in this postseason. Like, again, like Zach Wilson was getting some balls downfield, and you're like, man, that just shows how bad this secondary is. They have like this carousel of defensive backs coming in and out due to COVID and injuries and whatnot. So I think the Panthers can do enough that they can hit the over 41.5. That just feels like a few points too low.
With that Bucks team, guys, now I don't want to talk a lot about the Antonio Brown drama off the field because I know the show yesterday, Emerson Reed, they got into that deep. We don't need to regurgitate that, although more and more stuff comes out today, including Antonio Brown now deciding turning on Tom Brady seems like a good idea, which is just, absolutely wild, this guy, what goes through his head. But beyond that, on the field, most in particular, just going forward, this team in its pursuit, obviously, of winning back-to-back championships, we know how good Brady is, how good he's been all year, and what the weapons around him are capable of. The thing is, he doesn't have the same weapons he had last year. Now, as we reach week 18, Antonio Brown is gone. He's off the roster. Chris Godwin is done for the season with the injury. Mike Evans is certainly banged up. I mean, suddenly Rob Gronkowski, turning back the clock, is the go-to guy. I mean, what is this thing going to look at, whether it's specifically week 18 here, Bukes, or just looking beyond in a title defense?
I mean, look, I'm not going to discredit Brady and what he can do, but, this kind of brings back memories of his last year in the Patriots. You know this well, Coffin. I'm sure you watch tapes every night before you go to sleep because it's Brady in the uniform.
2019 lulls me to sleep. It's perfect.
Right, exactly. But I mean, they're going to have to rely on guys like, Grayson, that kid Grayson, who had 8 targets last week against the Jets. Like, he's going to be in a prominent role. Tyler Johnson potentially, but Gronk's another guy. He's got a couple incentives that he could hit this week. So another guy to kind of keep a watch on this week too, as well, when you're doing some prop betting or DFS plays. But, it's going to be tough. And this is going to be more on Brady than before because, at least when he was with the Patriots, he had a good defense behind him. He just doesn't have that with the Bucs. Especially with that secondary. The run defense is phenomenal, but through the air, they're getting absolutely gouged. So it's just Brady's going to have to shoulder the load in this one. And I mean, that's Kaufman's dream.
I just looked here too, LaMarca. Even the DraftKings Sportsbook is like, I don't know. Like, it's all that's there is Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski as far as receiver profs.
Fine with, I think that's more than enough for Tom Brady, right? I mean, the guy is Tom Brady. He's won titles with less. I think plus 900, you can get them to win the Super Bowl. That's third in the NFC right now. I think that's a pretty fair number. I still might prefer the Cowboys at 11-1, despite what we saw from them last week. But yeah, again, it's really just, it kind of gets more and more to the fact that this feels like the Packers conference to lose.
Yeah.
They're going to have home field. They have the likely back-to-back MVP. they are getting healthier while their competition seems to be getting more banged up. It feels like it's the Packers' year, whether or not they actually will come through. I know our buddy Glash loves to crap on the fact that the Packers never win in the playoffs, but this really feels like the year that they make it back to the Super Bowl.
But Bukes, are they going to kick on 4th down?
That is a girl. Well, put it this way: is Aaron Rodgers going to play in the Super Bowl, or is he going to boycott it?
Yeah, I mean those reports today are something else.
That's the big story today, baby.
Aaron Rodgers is going to boycott the Super Bowl.
You didn't see this report? So
I can't keep up with all.
Yeah, well, keep up with your own state, my man. This is WFAN. Boomer Esiason got a text from someone reliable, whoever that is. I don't know that he ever actually outed the source, but somebody texted him and said that he has it on good authority that Aaron Rodgers, should he make it to the Super Bowl, plans to at least threaten to boycott playing in the Super Bowl if the league doesn't alter its COVID guidelines.
And he's going to use the week before to basically air it out.
And he has told Jordan Love to be ready.
The world is crazy, man. The world is crazy.
Do we really believe that Aaron Rodgers' ego would allow him to not play in a Super Bowl if he gets there? I mean, if we believed that, he wouldn't be playing this year. He would have held out. He would have not come back to Green Bay.
You know what, though? This might be what he wants. He gets to just hold a gun to Green Bay's head and say,
hold a gun to the NFL's head, not just Green Bay, the NFL. Play their biggest game.
I'm not getting involved on any of the vaccination stuff.
Sure.
But we've seen players.
Smart, by the way. Don't do that.
We've seen players that are willing. You know, Kyrie Irving was willing to give up a season as opposed to, do what he is required to do to play basketball. So nothing would surprise me anymore is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Yeah. Nets were the ones that count down ultimately to Kyrie Irving and kind of the Packers to Aaron Rodgers, seemingly. It is interesting. The drama that this guy is surrounding himself with right now. But nevertheless, they are the Super Bowl favorites on the DraftKings.
And he's playing great, man. You can't say he's taken away. He's out there balling every week.
Look, he may not have
1 week when he wasn't allowed to.
He might not have Hub Arkush's MVP vote, but a lot of other people out there are going to be voting for him. No doubt about it. Is just looking at this going into week 18, because I always ask you guys about this. It's just I don't know, the numbers change week to week. It's a fun question for me. I know you both believe this is, if ever there were a year for Green Bay, this is Green Bay's year. But which is the team that jumps out to you with longer odds, Bukes, that you like? Set a week out from the playoffs before everything is finalized going in terms of seeding and positioning, who's in, who's out, all that. If you're looking for that one last push at a good number, who is it?
Man, I mean, look at the Bengals at 20-1. Like, man, those odds are just. They jump out at you, right? Like
everybody loves the Bengals.
They do. Listen, I love Joey B. His ball downfield is a thing of beauty. Him and Herbert, that rookie class absolutely tramples whatever junk we got out of 2021. But man, I mean, look, do I think the Bengals have a shot? Not really. But at 20-1, if that team gets hot at the right time, that's one of those teams, right? That you look at this board and you go, man, if I just fired away on that 20-1, because after that, who really has a legitimate chance? Nobody, right? Like looking at that board there. So it basically, for me, it ends at the Bengals at 20-1. Nothing for the Niners, Chargers, blah, blah, blah. I just think that if there's a long shot you want to take, maybe it's the square play at this point because everybody's on the Chargers, but at 20-1, I mean, that's worth a shot in my opinion.
Can I tell you the bet that I'm waiting for? It doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
Maybe Steve Buchanan can make this happen. We know he has pull. I want the bet where it's like you can take either the Packers or the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, or you can get the field.
The field.
And I 100% want the field this year.
That's interesting.
I think that it's so wide open. You can make a case that there are 5 different teams that can win the NFC. The AFC, I think, is a little bit more congested at the top. I think it's probably going to be the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Titans. I don't really see the Patriots being like a real factor in there. The Colts having to win all the games on the road, that kind of takes me off them. So I think this is as wide open of a year as we've had in a long time.
Send me a message. I want to find out about that. I actually like that a lot. I want to find out about that. Send me a message. I'm gonna ask about that.
And then it's going to show up on social with his face next to it.
No, not at all.
I want my name attached.
If you want this prop bet, follow me. And
Nope.
we'll give you an odds boost.
I'm taking zero credit for that. Nope, but I do like that a lot, actually. That's actually pretty cool.
You made me think of something here, Lamarca, in talking about some of those teams, especially the congestion in the AFC. And I'm not even, believe it or not, in the interest of time, I'm not even coming at this from a Patriots perspective. And quite frankly, they're not top 5 in the odds right now anyway. So an upper echelon team that you just view as kind of a pretender. Like the Bills, to me, even at plus 750, even third best odds, right behind KC, all that. Like, I don't know. In watching the Bills throughout this season, I haven't been impressed. Like, to me, that doesn't look like a team. I realize there's so much parity in the NFL. Anybody can win. Would it be shocking if, one of 8 teams won? No, it really wouldn't. But that being said, Packers, Chiefs, Bucks, Rams, like easy. Like, you don't have to explain any of that to me. I'm not impressed by the Bills. I'm just not.
So here's the thing with Buffalo. When Josh Allen plays to the most of his abilities, they are a really tough team to beat because their defense is excellent. But we haven't seen Josh Allen play to that consistent MVP level this year like he did last year. So I think that they have a wide range of outcomes. But if Allen plays at a consistently high level throughout the course of the postseason, it will not surprise me at all if they win the Super Bowl. My pick for fraud, I guess, and I do think that these numbers are pretty good. The Rams are a little higher than I would have them, just with the Stafford being so banged up factor. Like his numbers have really kind of dropped off after a excellent start to the year. So I don't have as much confidence in them as I did at the beginning, just because you have to worry about him so much. I mean, what is the guy throwing, like 17 pick sixes this season now? Every single week, it seems like there's one getting taken back to the house against him. And they have won 5 straight games, but there have been a lot of close games over that time frame, including a 1-point win last week against Baltimore. So I think I would have the Rams behind both the Buccaneers and the Cowboys if I was setting the odds.
Who's a favorite fraud for you, Bukes, before we get out of here?
And you know what? And I can back this up that I've been on this fraud team since day one because I bet them to miss the playoffs back in September. It's the Colts. If it wasn't for Jonathan Taylor, this team would be absolutely nowhere. And it showed last week against the Raiders. They fall behind. Then you have to rely upon Carson Wentz to win you a game. It ain't happening. It is absolutely not going to happen. Guy completes less than 60% of his pass attempts against a really bad secondary for 148 yards, 1 passing touchdown. If the Colts get behind in the playoffs, they're done. They're absolutely done. So the odds are set correctly. This Colts team is not going to win. I'm actually really pissed that I'm actually going to lose that miss the playoff bet because I bet it when Carson Wentz was announced he probably wasn't going to start the season, and then that idiot came back real quick. But either way, if the Colts are playing from behind, they're not coming back to win. So the Colts are that team for me.
Can I just say one thing on the Colts real quick?
Say anything.
They have been extremely entertaining on in-season Hard Knocks.
Hey,
and I got to say, all in on in-season Hard Knocks. How this show
just
operated
out.
as a preseason show versus an in-season show for so long, it's silly. Think about it. When it's the preseason, we're focusing on like 6th-string wide receivers, 9th-string cornerbacks, all guys that aren't going to make the roster, and they just want to get us attached to them so they can rip their dreams out from underneath them. Now it's like, oh, let's spend the week with Darius Leonard. Let's see what he's about, and I'm really enjoying it.
Even more impressive too is that, like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, bigger picture, nobody along the way was like, hey, we should do an in-season version of this.
Right?
Like, it was just never even talked about.
Yeah.
Everyone's just content with the preseason. Thank you, NFL. You've done it again.
Oh, man. Nothing better than Keelan Doss, right, boys? Am I right?
Rex Ryan making a sandwich and whatever else. Robbie Noble, Cobra Kai season 4 is fire, baby. Finish it up. You got another half a season to go. It's incredible. And Bukes, we got season finale of Dexter to look forward to on Sunday. All right, we're going to get out of here. Everybody, thank you for being with us on a Friday to wrap up your week, at least in terms of the slate. Slate returns on Monday. Sweat comes at you Sunday. Get you ready for week 18. Make sure you join everybody then here on the DraftKings YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter pages. For Lamarca, for Bukes, Eamon, Drew, I'm Adam. Thanks. See ya.